Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? All right, the voting's already starting in Iraq. Let's kind of do a little bit of a wrap-up, I guess would be a good way to put it, over what has happened the past year at least, and then kind of reflect a little bit on where we are and where we might be here in the short to long-term future, okay? We're going to talk about that here in just a second. Hey, folks, just a quick reminder that back in 2008 and 9, a lot of people lost all of their retirement savings and their 401ks and IRAs because they did not own gold and silver. Yeah, that's right. Gold and silver protects you from a market crash. So do yourself a favor, protect your retirement by purchasing gold and silver. You can go to moneymetals.com, reach out to them, and they will help you set yourself up to protect you and your family from having to start all over from scratch. If you're a first-time buyer and you spend more than $100, use promo code Pimpy, P-I-M-P-Y, and they will send along with your order a free half ounce of silver. So folks, do yourself a favor, head on over to moneymetals.com and protect you and your family from a market crash, as well as inflation. Right now is the time to do it, so head on over to Money Metals Exchange. The link is down below in the description. For those of you looking for my address, there it is right here. And you guys know I have this alternative website over there where I post videos that were banned from YouTube. I encourage you to go because there's a lot of information on the jab as well as the disease itself. In addition to that, you're going to see podcasts on there from me and Doc. A lot of people have enjoyed the videos that him and I have done together, and I look forward to working with him on future shows. We're going to start having guests on. I think you guys would really respect and appreciate. $3 a month, unlimited access. You can't beat that. 2 days before the general election, in which many Iraqis say they won't vote. Although the country is safer than it has been in years, endemic corruption and mismanagement have left many people without work, healthcare, education, and electricity. We know that, but definitely there has been much progress thanks to Al-Kadhimi and his cabinet. They've done a wonderful job. Turnout will show if there's much faith left in Iraq's still young democratic system. Large established parties, mostly drawn from the Shiite majority, are expected to stay in the driving seat, as they have since Saddam Hussein's Sunni-led government that was ousted in 2003. Friday's early ballot include voting among the more than 1 million people who are still displaced from the battle with ISIS in 2017. Mass anti-government protests swept across Baghdad and the south 2 years ago. They toppled a government and forced the current leader to hold his election 6 months early. Dozens of activists who oppose the major parties have been threatened and killed since 2019, scaring many reformists into not participating in the vote. Iraqi officials blame armed groups with links to Iran for killing, which they deny. We've spoken about this many times. Ever since 2003, the Middle East has really been unstable. Every time Iraq appeared to be making progress, for one reason or another, there's always a major setback. We know the protests took place, they ousted Maliki, and in came Al-Kadhimi. It's hard when a new government, or I should say a new prime minister, is put into place. A lot of people have that attitude of, it's just always going to be the same no matter what. I know, we live in America and we're seeing that now. But I believe in actions. I don't care about your words. That doesn't mean anything to me. Let me see your policies. Let me see your procedures. Let me see what you actually do. Are you making things better for the people in Iraq? I believe, and I said this before, I don't live over there in Iraq, but I believe Al-Kadhimi has made a lot of progress in all the right directions and weaved out a lot of the corruption. That's why you see me supporting him on this election. I'm hoping he's reelected and the progress continues to move forward. He has somehow managed to balance out all the different groups who constantly oppose one another. He has their ear. They believe in him, and that's why since he's been in office, there hasn't been a lot of ruckus. So I'm not sure what he's doing and how he's doing it, but doesn't matter as long as progress is being made for all the right reasons. So the early voting is taking place. The polling stations are already closed. The early voting is taking place. You can see the United Nations teams are already there monitoring it. It's not that I trust the UN, to be quite honest with you. Here's the UN saying Iraqis should have the confidence to vote as they please. You see, it's not a matter whether or not they vote as they please. It's whether or not the people they actually voted for are the people who are going to represent them in governments speaking from experience. Heavy turnout at polling stations in Baghdad and Mosul. So early voting's already taken place. Like 1.1 million people have already voted. This is good. What I was hoping was they would have already counted the early votes and we could kind of get an idea of where people stand. I'm concerned because a lot of those countries who are monitoring are all part of the Great Reset. So let's wrap things up just a little bit. What have we learned over the past year, if anything? Is an RV or an RI possible? Are we getting any closer at all to achieving what we all want? So people want to know the difference between an RI and an RV. Just so you know, an RV is when they revalue the currency. An RI is when they reinstate the value of a currency to its prior value. I've done plenty of videos showing you where the United Nations, United Security Council, the Forum on Economic Development all said there's no reason for Iraq not to be reinstated to their current value of $3.22 prior to the devaluing of the currency by our country. Now take with that what you want, because all the arguments for it not to happen, I support and agree. Now let me clarify myself on that, because people are going to go, oh man, Pimpy doesn't want to do a reinstatement. No, I do. But there's 55 trillion dinars. If you think about the math, there's no way in heck if all those dinars were turned in for American money, that would crash the entire economy. The country would just literally go bankrupt. We know for a period of 3 or was it 5 years in which they took oil money that they have generated. They took 1 to 1.5 billion of those dollars and bought dinar off the open market and destroyed the currency. We never knew how much of the currency was destroyed. There's a lot of speculation out there. We know when ISIS came in, they destroyed a ton of dinar. We know a flood went into Iraq and destroyed a ton of dinar. We know through currency swaps with other nations that the central banks and private entities own a large amount of the dinar currency, including the United States, which we've pinpointed that they hold 11 trillion dinar. Now, if you start doing the math off the numbers that we are aware of, you can kind of guesstimate how much is it there in the hands of speculators. Well, they can't afford to guesstimate. I told you that there was a lot of money missing out of Iraq long before it even made it in the articles. And I told you there's a group of people trying to recover it long before it made it into the articles. Then I told you the purpose of them desperately trying to get the dinar back, not just because it belonged to the government and they needed it, but because obviously the idea of a reinstatement is on their mind. But you can't reinstate the dinar until you can account for where the dinar is. If you do this wrong and you make a mistake and all of a sudden you find out that ISIS or Al-Qaeda somehow magically had billions of dollars worth of dinar, then you change the rate to $3 for every one dinar, they'll find a way to funnel the money that they have. They'll exchange it. And now you funded one of the largest terrorist groups or two of the largest terrorist groups in the world. Do you understand why they must be careful on this? So what they need to do is either recover the money that was stolen. We know it's there and we know they had conferences about it. I told you in advance, there's too many people wanting their palms greased. It's becoming an issue and they want that money in advance before they pull the trigger on this deal. They need those dinars so they could add to the total that is accounted for. And from there, they'll be able to go, this is how many dinars that are not accounted for out of all the ones we produced. You would have to assume it's either in the hands of speculators, investors, or criminals. You have to make that kind of calculation since you can't account for it. You always think negative just in case. If the number is sensible, then they'll reinstate the rate. If they know that it's not going to be a major shock to the system, that it's not going to collapse, they'll reinstate. Too many people are going, man, there's 55 trillion dinar out there. If they change the rate, they automatically calculate it to US dollars. Understand a lot of things. First of all, a vast majority of that money is in the hands of central banks as well as private entities, out of the hands of public. When Iraq was spending $1 to $1.5 billion buying dinar off the open market, rumors were that they were destroying it. Nobody knew how much. Then I seen a report in which it claimed that 72% of the dinar had been destroyed. It's the first time I've ever actually seen anything identify how much dinar has been removed out of circulation. And I did that video and I showed you guys and I showed you the article. It said 72%. That's not one of these blogs. That's not one of these dinar websites. I'm talking about an actual website. So if we take the 55 trillion dinars that have been produced by the Central Bank of Iraq, minus the 72% that was destroyed, it leaves us with 15 trillion 400 million. We know the United States is holding 11 trillion. That leaves 4 trillion 400 million. Do you see where I'm going with this? That number is still large. We're talking about trillion. That's why the calculating and these actions are necessary before the RI is implemented. We have to be able to account for where the dinar is. I think the number that's in the hands of speculators is much lower than people think. The average person that owns dinar, believe it or not, owns 250,000 dinars. I know some of you are like, what do you mean, dude? I own like 30 million of them. That's fine. I'm talking about the average dinar investor holds 250,000 dinars. Not just here in the United States, but other countries have invested into it as well. So from the remaining 4 trillion 400, I'm sorry, I said 400 million. It's not. 4 trillion 400 billion. Keep in mind that a lot of central banks, or the central banks, hold a lot of this currency. How much? I don't know. How much is in the hands of trade banks? How much is in the hands of private entity groups? The government and the Central Bank of Iraq, they know that number. So we got this far, 4 trillion 400 billion, just on the little information that we have, hypothetical. I saw an article in which there was 27 countries doing currency swaps that included Iraq. So I'm not sure how much each country got. I could tell you the dollar total of the currencies that were swapped was approximately 272 billion. That's just in the article I read about. So here's a question to you. What do you think is a realistic number? You see, banks are going to hold on to it. Whether there's an RI or not, it just adds to the foreign reserve assets. They're not going to run around and go, ooh, let's go ahead and cash ours in because we want to get rich off the RIRV. They don't care. Currencies change all the time. They hold the currencies on their books for a reason. That helps strengthen their currencies. So there's no problem about having all these types of, like the central bank entities running in to try to exchange their dinars for something. So that's not the issue. What we're looking at is how much is in the hands of the public is what we're trying to find out. So let me ask you, what do you think is a reasonable number? Let's say we find out that there's $1 billion in the hands of the public. We're just using this as an example. $1 billion are in the hands of the public. They've been able to account for everything but $1 billion. And they go, let's reinstate the rate times 3.22. Would that bankrupt the country? Would that ruin its economy? Would it destabilize the economy? $3,220,000,000. No. I mean, they make almost that. They make more than that in a month on oil. 1 billion isn't too bad, but we're talking about trillion. Instead of 1 billion, we find out that there's 10 billion. That's when you start getting into territory of this might not be feasible. Because now you got $32 billion. Again, they make a ton of money on oil. This whole theory is based on everybody at the same time running down all together to exchange your currency at one time. I mean, what's the odds of that realistically happening? It's going to be a small wave at first as word spreads, but there's going to be in situations where it continues to trickle afterwards for one reason or another. Maybe somebody has it locked up somewhere where they can't get access to it right away, or you're out on vacation for 2 weeks and it just started. Do you see what I'm saying? It's not going to come in all on the same day. Some banks are going to have the ability to exchange right away. And so they started accepting people coming in and making their exchange. They're prepared for it. Other banks are not going to be prepared for it. So now you got to think logistics. How easy is it going to be for people to go run down to somewhere to exchange it? It's not that easy for everybody. So do you see all the different kinds of, so you can see all the factors that play into this. It's not just our country. There are people as well in other countries that bought dinar, waiting for the rate to change. So some banks will accept it earlier than others. Some people will have access to theirs quicker than others. Some people are going to find out about it quicker than others, but it's not going to happen all at one time. So can Iraq handle the impact of a wave of people that come in to exchange their Iraqi dinars for their choice of currencies, obviously? Well, here's where the thought process is wrong. You see, all these people running down to exchange their dinar, you're not exchanging it directly to Iraq. You're exchanging it with your local banks or wherever it is that you're exchanging your dinars for. So each country is going to be impacted differently. Also, you're not talking about physical currencies. They're digital currencies. Once you make your deposit, do you think they just took fiat currency from one location and stored it in the bank because you have an account there? No, it's digital. Do you really believe we've printed out $22 trillion? No, that's like several football stadiums full of dollars. It's not possible. It's just digital money. So could each country handle their own wave of people coming in and exchanging the dinars for that country's currency? Because it's spread out everywhere, I would imagine that they can without there being a major impact on any country. Then it's between that country and Iraq to settle the differences. I'm going to go out on a limb and say most countries won't exchange it with Iraq. They'll put it on their books as an asset. Now, this is just my opinion. I think the best that we can hope for is they can account for all of the dinars and hopefully get it down to somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10 billion dinars before they do this. But do you see where we are? We're in the trillions. Do you understand why I keep telling you? I know everybody's like, oh man, this website said this. First of all, no, the article did not say anything about an exchange. Are you effing kidding me? Read the article. There's nothing in there that says anything about exchange rate happening. All that article says is that a new form is going to be implemented starting October 17, 2021. And so when I see these people on the video going, hey, whoa, look at here, I'm excited, we've been waiting a long time, I keep thinking to myself, what the hell are you looking at? Where on there at all does it say an exchange rate's going to happen? Worse than that is, why do you believe that the rate change is going to happen according to that article? What on that article gave you an indication that a rate change is going to happen? So I went through the article word by word and explained it because I want everybody to be grounded. I don't want people to just, this is what happens. Somebody goes out there and they hype something. Everybody gets excited. It sweeps through the dinar community like a freaking wildfire. And everybody's all excited. And then when it doesn't happen, you get discouraged. And this happens over and over. Then people get upset. Then they get mad. Then they just sell their dinars. And then their mission is what? To troll dinar investors and going, it's fake, it's a scam, it's never going to happen. This has been going on for decades, which is true. The true part is this has been going on for decades. The part about this is a scam, scams have happened, fraud has taken place using the dinar. The dinar itself is not a scam. The dinar itself is not fraud. It's a real usable currency. But this is how we end up in this predicament where you have a group of people that are constantly bashing dinar investors because they themselves, most likely at one time or another, were an investor, and they kept getting their hopes up until they got to the point where they just gave up. And why? Because people, like the videos that I was watching, are going out there going, hey, look, it looks like it's going to happen. Now, I've done videos in which I'm reading an article, and I go, man, this appears to be, in my opinion, stating this. So does that mean a rate change is going to happen? I don't know, but the wording in the article gives an appearance of the possibility that something's going to happen. When you read this other article, there's nothing on there that gives you any indication on there that a rate change is going to happen on the 17th. Somebody started a rumor that the rate change is going to happen on the election day. I don't know how anybody in their wildest dreams would think that a rate change would happen on the election. That doesn't make any sense. You have a new government coming in, possibly, and it's election day. Although that would be strategically cool. When people are so busy paying attention to the election that you just drop this quiet bomb and nobody's hoping nobody really pays attention. I just can't see that happening. Either they need to recoup the money that was taken and recovered, or at least get a dollar total, or get a count of how many dinars these people have that they've recovered, so they can make a better guesstimation on how much is in the hands of speculators. That's huge. What else do we need to see happening? We know there was a checkoff list, things that Iraq had to do in order for their sovereignty to be reinstated. There was a lot of laws that needed to be passed. They were passed. They had to make reconciliation with the countries in which they terrorized under Saddam Hussein, monetary compensation, in which they have either already settled everything with them or on the verge of. I believe the last country remaining is Kuwait, and Kuwait's still has a small balance. In the article that I remember reading said it should be done by February of 2022. So if that's one of the things that needed to be checked off, good. Check it off the list. What else? Stability. Check it off the list. Anti-corruption laws, anti-laundering laws, anti-terrorizing financing laws. All done. I don't remember the entire list, but the vast majority of it was done in 2019. There was only like 3 or 4 things left on the list. And then all heck broke loose, and the government at the time resigned, which was Maliki. But there's no doubt that ever since Al-Qademi has been in office, that the progress moving in the right direction was a lot more quicker and a lot more impressive. A lot of changes were made to try to wean out as much corruption as possible. I understand you're not going to get it all. That's just the nature of it. That doesn't mean we should tolerate it, but that is the nature of it. And we have to understand that there's going to be some level of corruption. You just don't want it at the level that they were experiencing. Recent articles have shown us that the steps that Al-Qademi has taken definitely is putting us in the right direction, setting up the possibility of a reinstatement. I've also said a billion times that we don't necessarily have to wait for the magical revaluation or reinstatement of the rate, that the dinar could gain in value naturally through economic growth. They were starting from the bottom with a ton of potential for an economic boom. We're seeing it play out. Private sector is being built. Revenue generated by the oil has increased. They've passed budgets. Debts are being settled. Old issues between countries being settled. Disputes are being settled. Iraq taking a bigger leadership role on the international scene from the Middle East. A lot of new trade agreements with multiple countries. They're being expedited through the World Trade Organization, which puts them again back out on the international scene. They're being removed off currency blacklist. These are major steps in the right direction. And now our troops are already starting to withdraw out of Iraq, restoring their sovereignty. So there's reason to be hopeful without having anybody out there bringing that article up and misleading people, claiming that a rate change is coming according to this article. There's nowhere in that article that says a rate change is going to happen. All it says is that a form is going to be used. It's a new procedure. It's going to be at the exchange windows or the banks in which people do actual currency exchanges. That was it. So do I think we're close to a possible a reinstatement? Here's the thing. It's hard to say. And the reason why I say that, remember when Kuwait, before they reinstated their currency to its original value, they told everybody in the news that it wasn't going to happen for a year and then did it 3 days later. So is it possible that during an election or on the 17th of this month, they call a reinstatement? Of course, anything is possible. That's the crazy thing about this. Anybody out there jumping up and down swearing they have a special intel or have a connection, they're lying to you. Because some of those intel people have been saying the same crap now for decades. Promising you this weekend, numbers on the back screen. Yep, the redemption centers got the 800 numbers, tier 1, tier 2. What the hell are you talking about? I got the codes. There's no 800 numbers. There's no redemption centers. No, you don't need a humanitarian project in order to get your money exchanged. Having said that, that doesn't mean you shouldn't donate or take part in a humanitarian project. I encourage you to do so. But there's nothing out there that says it's mandatory. That doesn't make no damn sense. Right? So all those people out there pumping that BS into you is just full of crap. When the reinstatement happens, they won't be going on the news going, dip, 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 hey, the currency has been reinstated. Dip, 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 dip. That's not going to happen. They just do it, and they don't say anything about it. There's no fanfare. There's no nothing, just like they did in Kuwait. And there won't be any formal announcement. They'll just do it. But to think that they're going to tell you guys in advance before they do it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You'll wake up one morning, your social media will be blowing up, and you'll realize that the rate change has happened. A lot of progress has been made. I still believe we're going to see the dinar go up in value. I think they're going to go up in increments. They're going to test the stress factor on the economy, stress factor on the country in full before they make any kind of real major announcement. So early voting is taking place. We got the election coming up in 2 days. Let's keep our fingers crossed that Al-Qademi comes in. I'm already hearing rumors that there's another candidate out there that's promising to do a rate change. Just so you are aware, because you might be new to this, no government has control over whether or not the rate change takes place. That is solely in the hands of the Central Bank of Iraq. So candidates going out there, if that's true, claiming that they're going to make the rate change back to where it was is false. They don't have that kind of control. So although I've not heard about any particular candidate that's out there promising for a rate change, that is swirling out there, and I just want to address that. There has been a ton of great progress that has taken place in Iraq, period. It's overshadowed by people out there blowing smoke up your butt with pixie dust and unicorn fairy tales. We don't need that crap in this arena, but they do it for all the wrong reasons. The 800 numbers, redemption centers, humanitarian projects, tier 1, tier 2, my military intel, the special codes. Who cares? None of that matters because it's all false. All right, anyways, that's it. You guys hit the thumbs up button. If you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I surely do appreciate it. And I'll catch you later. I'm out.